Chapter 3 begins with a frustrated question from Arjuna. He basically says, Krishna, I'm asking you to tell me clearly what's best for me. First you tell me to act with intelligence, but then you tell me to engage in this ghastly warfare. Because Arjuna gets it actually, that Krishna told him to fight. But because it's not the answer that he wanted to hear, he's not able to hear it. And so he's asking the question again, hoping that this time, calling it ghastly warfare, he's going to be able to get the answer that he's already decided is right. But Krishna, being the patient, kind friend that he is going to help Arjuna recognize what we talked about in the last video, which is that it's not what you're doing that matters, but why you're doing it first. And so Arjuna has a pretty common misconception about spiritual life, about doing things in a godly way, that most of us have, which is that to do things in a godly way basically means to not do anything at all, to kind of check out of the material world and detach altogether from activity in this realm. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that people understand life to be spiritual life to be a kind of inertia or a kind of non-engagement. But this idea is a very shallow conception of what it really means to be spiritual. Krishna wants Arjuna to come to the level of spiritual understanding where he can engage anywhere with anyone and everything and recognize its connection to divinity. And so that's what Krishna is trying to help Arjuna come to in this conversation in the Bhagavad Gita. And the first step that Krishna wants Arjunas to understand is that he's going to have to act in such a way that's beneficial, even if he doesn't feel like that action is the right way to go. Basically, action is going to precede feeling, which is the opposite way that we expect things to go. We want to feel like we want to do the spiritual thing before we're actually able to do it. A common experience we might all have is wanting to wake up early so that we can do our prayers or meditation. And yet, when the alarm rings at 4 a.m., it's really hard to get out of bed. The feeling that I want to get out of bed isn't there when the alarm actually goes off at 4 a.m. And yet still, based on our intelligence, based on our understanding that it's going to be the best thing for me to do to get out of bed right now, that's what's actually going to help us follow the practice, which will eventually bring the experience or the feeling that we're hoping to have. So this process of acting in accordance with what's right, even before we necessarily feel like acting in that way, Krishna describes as the process of yajna, or the process of doing things in accordance with the guidance of spiritual scripture and spiritual well-wishers, so that we can understand really what's best for us, even if, again, we don't feel like doing that thing in the immediate situation. And if we follow this process of yajna, which is a way to align all our activities in accordance with the desires of the Supreme, then naturally over time we develop an ability to overcome the enemy of the soul that Krishna describes at the end of the 3rd chapter, which is lust. Arjuna asks a wonderful question. He says, what is it, Krishna, that compels me to act in a way I know is bad, even when I don't want to, still I wind up doing things that I know are harmful for me? What is that energy which causes me to act in this unbecoming way? And Krishna says that it is lust only, Arjuna, that pulls you to this place. And when we use the word lust in this context, we're not only talking about gross physical sensual pleasure, sex between partners, but also lust on a more subtle level, something deeper inside the soul, this yearning for power and prestige and position and influence over others. This is the nature of lust, or kama in the Sanskrit term, that Krishna is addressing with Arjuna and explaining the process of yajna, or sacrifice, will help him overcome.